Welcome to my YouTube channel. Today, I'm going to explain the really complex and honestly fascinating nature of marriage in our modern world. When we hear the word marriage, most of us immediately think of romance, right? Finding that one special person, making a lifelong promise. But what if I told you that for most of human history, love had almost nothing to do with it? That's what we're digging into today, this huge tension between marriage as the ultimate expression of love and this growing feeling that it's becoming a social obligation, maybe one we can't even afford anymore. So this is the big question, isn't it? It's really the core of the whole debate. On one hand, you've got movies, songs, everything selling us this idea that marriage is the absolute peak of a romantic relationship. But then, on the other hand, a lot of people are starting to see it as this kind of outdated social pressure, a status symbol that's just too expensive or a tradition that doesn't really fit with how individual and independent we are now. So let's unpack that conflict. To really get a handle on where we are today, we've got to look back. And this quote from a Reddit discussion, wow, it just gets right to the point. The user says it's kind of gross how we've made it all about romance, because for most of human history, it was anything but. It was a practical deal, a social and economic contract. Its origins were, like the user said, pretty cold and superficial. Yeah, for literally thousands of years, marriage was basically society's main organizing tool. Think of it less like a romance and more like a business merger. It was a contract to create alliances between families, a way to pass down land and property, and to set up a stable unit to raise kids. The feelings of the actual couple, they were pretty far down the list of priorities. If love happened, hey, that was a great bonus, but it was absolutely not a requirement. So, how in the world did we get from a purely practical contract to our modern romantic ideal? Well, the huge shift really started back in the 18th century. A totally revolutionary idea started to take hold in the West. The idea that you should actually marry for love. This was a massive break from thousands of years of tradition. And from there, the whole concept just kept evolving, with each new model we're about to look at putting more and more focus on the personal connection between the two people. And this whole evolution led to what sociologists now call the Great Transformation. It's this idea that, especially in the last century or so, the entire purpose of marriage shifted, moving from something you did out of public duty to something you do for private desire and personal fulfillment. Okay, so the first model in this big transformation is what we call the institutional marriage. This is that classic duty-based model. Think about your great-great-grandparents maybe. In this setup, a marriage was considered successful if the couple did their jobs. Did they run the farm together? Did they raise the children? Did the family unit survive economically? The main question wasn't, are you happy? It was, is the institution functioning? Personal feelings were way secondary. So after that institutional model, we see the rise of the companionate marriage. This really hit its peak around the 1950s. And here, for the first time for a lot of people, emotional satisfaction and friendship became really important goals in a marriage. But, and this is a big but, this search for a best friend happened inside a very rigid structure. The gender roles were super defined. The husband was the breadwinner, the wife was the homemaker. It was a partnership, for sure, but a partnership with very clear and very separate job descriptions. And that brings us right up to the model that pretty much defines our world today, the individualized marriage. Starting around the 1960s, there was this big cultural shift towards what's called expressive individualism, and it changed the definition of a good marriage completely. Now, success is all about personal growth. It's about self-development and this deep emotional intimacy. The big question became, does this marriage help me become the best possible version of myself? All those old rigid roles, they're gone. Now they're flexible and you have to negotiate them. This puts the self, the individual, right at the center of the marriage, which is just a world away from where it all started. So within this modern era of the individualized marriage, two main ways of thinking have emerged. Sociologists call them the capstone model and the cornerstone model. And honestly, understanding the difference between these two is absolutely key to making sense of the choices and the pressures that people are dealing with right now. Okay, let's break this down. The cornerstone model sees marriage as the foundation of your adult life. It's the first brick you lay. You marry young, and then you build everything else, your career, your finances, your family, together on top of that foundation. In total contrast, the capstone model, which is dominant today, sees marriage as the crowning achievement. It's the final decorative piece you put on top of a life you've already built. It's something you do after you've got your education, your career, and your finances all sorted out. So it's less about building a life together from scratch and more about merging two already completed lives. And you can see the results of this shift to the capstone model so clearly in the data. The median age for a first marriage in the US today is around 29. Just a century ago, it was in the low 20s. That is a dramatic jump, and it's direct evidence that the capstone model is what we're doing now. People are building their individual lives first, and then maybe getting married. And this is the million-dollar question, isn't it? Our whole culture kind of assumes the answer is yes, of course. We're constantly told that waiting until you're older, more mature, and financially stable is the smart way to do it, the safer path to a successful marriage. But is that what the research actually shows? Does this capstone model really lead to better outcomes? Okay, so here's where the data gets really interesting and kind of turns our assumptions upside down. A major report from the National Marriage Project in 2022 looked at this, and they found that if you exclude high-risk teen marriages, there was no real stability advantage for people who married later. In fact, it was the cornerstone couples, the ones who married in their early to mid-20s, who actually reported being slightly more satisfied with their relationships. So why isn't this wait till you're ready model the perfect solution we think it is? Well, researchers point to a few potential problems. First, there's something they call paradoxical preparation. Basically, the things we do to prepare for marriage, like living with multiple partners, are ironically linked to a higher risk of divorce later. Then there's the great crossover. For the first time ever, the average age a woman has her first child is now lower than the average age she first gets married. The model's super high standards also mean that for a lot of people, marriage starts to look like an unaffordable luxury. And finally, think about it. Two people who are already fully settled in their ways might just find it a lot harder to merge their lives than a younger couple that grows and adapts together. But okay, despite all these challenges, all these changes and complexities, there is one thing in social science that stays remarkably consistent. It's called the marriage advantage. Over and over, research shows that, on average, married people report higher levels of happiness and well-being than unmarried people. So the question is, why? What's going on here? When researchers really try to break this advantage down, they found something pretty cool. About 61% of it is still unexplained. You know, it could just be that happier, more stable people are more likely to get married in the first place. But they were able to identify the specific reasons for the other 39%. And these are the measurable, concrete benefits of marriage that contribute to that gap in well-being. So let's dig into that 39%. What are these concrete benefits? Well, the data points to a few key things. Married couples tend to have higher family incomes, which makes sense when you're pooling resources. The public commitment of marriage creates what researchers call enforceable trust, which just boosts your trust in each other and in general. It also makes your social world bigger by giving you in-laws and connecting families, leading to more sociability. And maybe most importantly, it acts as a really powerful defense against loneliness and isolation. And these benefits seem to hold true across race and gender. This quote from the historian Stephanie Coontz, it just sums up our modern situation perfectly. The tension we feel today, the whole debate between love and obligation, capstone and cornerstone, it all comes from this brand new reality. For the first time in human history, we have a whole bunch of different legitimate choices for how to live our lives. Staying single, living together, marrying early, marrying late, they're all seen as valid paths. And that creates a landscape that is incredibly freeing, but also, you have to admit, incredibly confusing. So, where does all of this leave us? We started off asking if marriage today is about love or if it's about obligation. But as we've seen, it's just not that simple. The very meaning of marriage has been changing and evolving for centuries. It's not some static thing with one fixed definition. It's more like a promise that every single generation gets to reshape and redefine for itself. And this is really the final thought I want to leave you with. In this age of the individualized marriage, where the old social scripts are fading away and our personal choices matter more than ever, the responsibility for defining what marriage is, well, it falls on us. We're the architects now. The future of this entire institution depends on the conscious choices that we all make about what commitment, partnership, and purpose really mean to us. So the real question for all of us is, what are we going to build? Thanks for your time watching the whole video. So what do you think? Is marriage a cornerstone you build your life on? Or is it a capstone you earn at the end? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Comment down below with your opinions about it, and please share any experiences you've had in your own life. Also, let me know what topic I should talk about next. Make sure to subscribe to my channel for more videos like this, and click the notification bell icon so you get notified when I upload my next video. Have a good day. Bye.